Welcome to Tripping Over the Ottoman. I'm David Van Deusen here with my co-host, Abby.
And if you're new to our podcast, David and I are two super fans from totally different generations that take a deep dive into episodes of the one thing that unites us.
And that is the Dick Van Dyke Show.
And if you've been listening and subscribing to our podcast, first of all, thank you very much. But also, you'll know that our last episode, we took a look at the first part of a two-parter, which was called Laura's Little Lie, which was the episode in which it's revealed that Laura lied on about her age on the marriage certificate. And today we're going to be taking a look at the second part of that two-parter, which is called Very Old Shoes, Very Old Rice. This is a nice little episode. Not a lot happens, but it's a great cap on the first part, and it allows us to laugh with a lot of new faces, a lot of new guest stars that we haven't seen. And I think it really showcases the chemistry between, Rob and Laura and Dick and Mary.
So this was a season 3, episode 4 episode. Ironically, this is season 3, episode 4 of Tripping Over the Ottoman.
I noticed that too.
we're in alignment here today. Episode written by Carl Reiner, directed by John Rich. Originally written August 2nd, 1963, revised later in that month on August 23rd, filmed on August 27th, 1963, eventually airing on October 16th, 1963.
Well, I have a few synopses. You have a couple, David?
I do. Go ahead, you go first.
I got a new book, David. It's a 90s Nick at Night companion book. It's very cool, and it has a whole big chapter on the Dick Van Dyke Show. So I'm going to share their synopsis.
Sure.
The parties discover they're not legally married. I love the parties. Laura's little lie on the license invalidates the contract, so they plan to elope. Eventually, they renew their marriage vows, even though they're in the middle of a tempestuous argument.
Wow, that is quite the description. One I have says, after revealing to Rob that she was only 17 when they married, and she lied on their marriage license, Laura must travel out of town with Rob so they can get married again and make their marriage legal without anyone finding out about it.
That's great.
I like how they say travel out of town, like to go where no one knows them or something.
Yeah. Which I guess is maybe what they were doing. I have one more. Rob and Laura renew their marriage vows in a hastily arranged ceremony, despite the fact that they are barely on speaking terms.
Oh, very, very interesting takes on that, for sure.
Absolutely.
This episode, along with Dick and Mary, features a few unique guest stars, which we'll talk about in depth, but we'll just list them here, I think, off the top. It includes Russell Collins, who plays Judge Craddock. We'll talk about him a little later. Burt Mustin, who was 79 years old at the time, playing the role of Donald Lucas Parker. This was Burt's only Dick Van Dyke Show appearance. And then Burt's wife, Dodo.
Dodo was my favorite.
played by Madge Blake, who actually had 2 different appearances on the Dick Van Dyke Show. This one, and as the lady in the train station who also spotted the UFO in Uni Oofs.
That's right.
So we'll talk about those folks a bit more later, but very interesting and fun characters for sure. And of course, we do get a brief cameo with Frank Adamo.
A Frank sighting.
later in the episode.
Well, the opening of this episode opens in the Petrie living room, and we weirdly just see Millie. She's by herself, and she's talking to Laura, who's off screen in the bedroom. And Millie's reading a magazine, and they're kind of talking about how, Laura's going to show her something. She's getting something ready. She's going to bring it out to show her. And Millie's like, well, hurry up. One thing I want to note, though, before we go on to the plot, is that magazine she's holding, I'm always interested in the props of, like, is it a real thing? Is it a made prop?
Were you able to see what she's reading?
I was able to take a screenshot and pause it and zoom in. And I think it's a prop. It's a large format magazine, like a Life magazine, those big formats, and it says Elite in the top. And so I went kind of researching, there were some smaller magazines that were like Elite Fashion or Elite, but nothing like this at all. And when I zoomed in a little farther, it does kind of look like hand lettering that somebody has done. So I think it's a prop that they've made with the cover, like maybe over a Life magazine or something. They've made up their own magazine of the time kind of thing. So I think, yes. I'm pretty sure it's a prop.
Sometimes I think they were real TV guides or other magazines of the day. And I think other times they were props, and sometimes they probably had to be careful about using a real magazine.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's that big, you're really showing the cover. So there's some suburban neighborhood drama because Millie's getting impatient because she's talking about how she's the carpool that morning for the kids going to school, and that Laura, showing her what she's going to show her is making her late, and all the moms are going to get mad at her, if the kids have to walk in the rain again, kind of thing. But I love it. It makes the neighborhood very real.
So in the final episode, as we see it, yeah, Millie says the last time the kids had to walk home in the rain, right? As is sometimes the case, we had a different version or an earlier version of the script, and Millie was originally going to say the last time the kids walked home from school in a hailstorm and Roy Emanuel Siegel forgot his hat and really got pelted.
Roy Emanuel Siegel. Don't we hear that name in the Rosebud episode? Doesn't Richie say Roy Emanuel Siegel is like somebody, he's talking about middle names who has, interesting middle names at school? I think we hear that in that episode.
Oh, I'll have to go back and check that.
I'm almost positive.
Know, but I thought it's, again, interesting how we got away from a hailstorm and then we ended up in a rainstorm.
So sounded less violent, I guess. So Laura exits the bedroom finally, and we see she's wearing a new outfit, that this is what she's going to show Millie. And I'll say that outfit is beautiful. It's probably one of my favorite outfits in the whole series that Laura wears. It's kind of like a embroidered lace thing, and she's got the long gloves on and the little Jackie Kennedy pillbox hat, and it almost looks like metallic. It's very beautiful. So I love Millie's reaction, which is just like, oh my, she's very excited about it. And I would love to see what that costume looked like in color. Maybe I'll try to put it in AI or something and see what it can come up with for me, because it's so beautiful.
And this is a classic Ann Gilbert Millie line, if you will, right? Because Millie doesn't say thing one time or two times. Generally, in other episodes, it's three times. Here, it's beautiful. Oh, it's just beautiful. Oh, it is. I think he maybe says it 4 or 5 times. So Ann Gilbert always talked about that. Her daughter, Nora, told the story once where she was visiting with her mom and there was an episode on, and in the background, there was a scene where Millie said it 3 times. And Ann said, Nora, did you hear that? She said, they always made me say the things 3 times. 3 times. Can you believe they made me say it 3 times? So even as she was explaining it to her daughter, Nora, she was doing the very thing that she was describing.
That's great. I love that story. That's wonderful. So of course she's gushing in her classic Millie speech pattern. I always like to look too of what they do with costuming. So if you notice that Millie is dressed very plainly, and I think that's on purpose, so she looks sort of like, less special than Laura's looking in her nice new outfit. But so Laura says, well, do you think it's too much? And Millie kind of misunderstands, and she thinks she means the price rather than, if she's overdressed. Well, whatever you paid for it, it's worth it.
And then we go on, could I wear it for any occasion? And Millie sort of says, well, not to the beach or to the gym.
And then we kind of get the first instance of maybe that Laura's wanting to tell Millie, and she's maybe leading her there a little bit. Like, there's a running joke on this series and in a lot of sitcoms where it's like, if someone guesses your secret, technically you didn't tell them. And so if you can get her there, get them close to it, and then they go themselves over the edge. You didn't do anything wrong. So you can already see it like, well, could you wear it to luncheon? What about it? What about an informal wedding? So she's already planting the seed, somewhere in Millie. Laura and Millie, they have that kind of friendship, where they tell each other everything. One thing I wanted to say was there's sort of an unspoken rule too that husband and wives have secrets that they don't share with anybody else. But if somebody tells them a secret, they're going to share it with each other. So like I was remembering with Anthony Stone, with Sally was like, you won't tell anybody? She goes, I'm not going to tell anybody. She goes, well, when you tell Rob, he won't tell anybody. Kind of reminded me of that. So they have this secret, but they're going to be telling people here. So, but Laura has said, I promised Rob I wouldn't tell anybody the secret.
That just makes Millie more agitated about wanting to know. What do you mean you won't tell me? I'm your next door neighbor, closed mouth Millie. You told me about the Frenchman and the lump of sugar, right? Jacques Bergeron.
Yeah.
Jacques Savan.
Yeah, Jacques Savan, yeah. And I think that's great because they don't often reference other episodes in the show. A lot of old sitcoms do that, like I Love Lucy, like, well, when's the last time I did anything wrong? Oh, let me list the last 10 episodes. And you kind of, it's like a callback to other things that have happened. They don't do that much. This is one of the rare times I've seen that, it was kind of fun.
And Laura says to her, I wish I could tell you. And Millie says, well, wishing makes it so, Laura. Laura now, having dropped the hints, tries to sort of change the subject and get out of it. She says, we really got to go, Millie, or the children are going to get wet. And now all of a sudden, Millie doesn't care. She's like, it'll toughen them up.
Yeah, she's totally changed sides. Yeah. Gossip comes first. So then it kind of turns into a guessing game. They kind of come up with this loophole again, is if you guess it, I didn't really tell you. Laura's kind of hesitating. And then she says, Millie says, well, was it one of the 3 occasions that you mentioned before? And Laura immediately goes, yes. So Millie starts sort of eliminating, possibilities. Well, was it a matinee? Was it a luncheon? And she says, no, it's a wedding. She figures it out. Didn't take him 2 seconds.
And the reaction of Anna and how loud she says,
Yes.
it's a wedding, with the excitement and glee of having figured it out.
It's so great.
But she really thinks she's figured it out because she thinks that Rob and Laura are going to go and attend the elopement of Sally. And Laura's like, well, no.
And then she says, well, gosh, she seems so jumpy. You'd think it was your own wedding. And Laura says, what'd you say that for? And Millie goes, what did I say? Her face is great. She's almost looking around like, I'm on it. How did, what did I say? Did I get it? Was that a clue? She's just fantastic here.
And it's great. Then Laura tries to divert again, and she says, come on, we got to go. Rich, you'll catch a cold. And again, Millie's like, I'll pay for his flu shots. And says to Laura, if you don't tell me, I'm not telling you any more secrets. I'm going to tell Sadie Stein from now on.
What do you think of this, listeners? I'm not sure. David, I wonder what you think of this. So Sadie Stein is mentioned a few times in the series, in different episodes. And so I wondered if it was someone Carl knew in real life, maybe. So I kind of researched into it a little bit. This might be where it comes from. I'm not sure. But apparently Joseph Stein was a colleague and longtime friend of Carl's. And they worked together in the 50s on Sid Caesar's and, Your Show of Shows. Joseph Stein was one of the writers there, while Carl was both a writer and performer there. Their relationship kind of continued throughout the years. And I think Joseph Stein adapted the Enter Laughing novel into the screenplay.
He did, yes.
Yeah. And they co-wrote the screenplay for the film version. And so I wondered if there was a relation there. And looking into it, it looks like Joseph Stein's first wife was named Sadie Singer Stein. So I wonder if that was it. But
I'm sure it was, because Carl always used people that he knew.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out who Roy Emanuel Siegel was then.
We digress, right?
Always.
Laura comes around and she asks Millie, if I tell you, will you swear that you will not tell anyone? Millie's again, they can pull out my fingernails and drop water on my head and scratch me on a rack and tickle me my feet with feathers. I won't tell anybody.
Who's getting married? And again, she repeats that. Who's getting married? She repeats it so many times in a row. It's great escalation there.
Finally, Laura looks at her and she says, Rob and I. And Millie says, Rob and you?
Screams it almost. So Laura puts her hand over her mouth, like, keep it down. Like, this is exactly why I wasn't supposed to tell, why I wasn't going to tell you,
And immediately Laura says, remember, you guessed it. I didn't, is it to say I didn't tell you, right? Yep. And Millie replies, well, it seems to me that you and Rob have been married for years. And Laura says, well, not legally.
Since when?
So Laura says, let's go get the kids. I'll explain it to you all in the car. I think this is sort of an interesting thing, too, that I noticed. See if you picked it up. When they exit,
yes,
they close the front door. And for some reason in this shot, we get to see a lot of the exterior of them walking down the walk.
Yeah. I've never seen before. I never picked that up before.
I mean, sometimes you see a couple shadows move past the window or something, but then immediately it's done. In this case, it's several seconds. And in fact, there was dialogue that we were supposed to hear from off stage.
Interesting.
That we didn't because they ended the scene. Laura says, after they're outside of the door, I lied about my age on the marriage certificate. And Millie says, well, how old are you anyway? Laura says, that's not the point, Millie. And she said, well, how could you lie about your age? In this loud voice. And Laura says, shh, not so loud. You can really, as you read these lines, hear their voices.
Yeah.
Hear the way that they would say it, their inflection and whatever.
And that exterior shot is interesting. You actually almost see the siding of the house, you really see a lot of the materials there, which usually before it's curtains or something, you can't really see much, but that's very interesting.
So as we close that scene, our next scene opens in the office with Rob and Buddy and Sally. And there's a whole section of the script here again that we never saw, or maybe they did it, but it got cut out. Right?
Yeah.
I'll just summarize it quickly here, but basically we see the cast and they're sort of eating their lunch.
Well, that's a shame. I always love when they have food. It always makes it so much funnier.
Yeah. And Rob says to Buddy, are you finished with your pickle? And Buddy says, how can you ask that? I still have 2 French fries and a quarter of a sandwich left. And I always make everything come out even.
I love that.
Rob says, well, hurry up. And he starts to pick up some of the papers from the wrapping of the sandwiches. And he looks at Sally and says, well, you're all finished, aren't you? And she says, hold it, Charlie. Do you mind if I had my dessert? And Rob says, oh, I'm sorry, Sal. So she quickly grabs and salvages a piece of celery and she says, thank you. So what's with you, Rob? Rob says, I told you I need the morning off tomorrow and I'd like to see us get a little bit ahead. Come on, buddy, hurry up. Let's go. Buddy says, Rob, take it easy. I got one bite of everything left. Let me enjoy it. Rob says, all right, but hurry. With that, Buddy takes another bite of the sandwich and a French fry and a piece of the pickle. And Rob grabs up all the debris immediately and wants to have Buddy pick up his paper cup and swallow his one last sip of coffee. As this happens, Rob sweeps the empty cup and tosses it into the basket. Buddy stops and he looks at him. He says, Rob, do you mind if I have my glasses back? I'm not finished with them. Rob goes to the trash and retrieves Buddy's eyeglasses. And he said, okay, let's get to work. Sally says, hey, come on now. Give the poor guy a chance to make a bubble. With that, Buddy hits his chest with his fist and does a nice, delicate hiccup and says, I'm ready. Sally says, well done. Rob says, good. Now, where were we? And Buddy says, you know something? I don't like working this hard unless I know it's for a good cause. Sally says, yeah, like a bonus or a raise. Rob says, I told you I have to take tomorrow morning off. Sally says, yeah, we know that, but we'd like to know why. And Rob says, why must you know? Sally says, because you always tell us everything. And when you don't, it only means that it must be very exciting or very unusual or a lot of trouble. And I'm dying to know because I'm basically a busybody. Buddy says, me too. If I wasn't a writer, I'd be a house dick, which is, the slang term for a house detective, right?
Yeah.
And it's at that point that the actual filmed version of the episode kicks in. And we see Rob say, believe me, I will tell you if I could, but I can't.
That is the awesomest scene. Like, that is so cool. Oh my gosh,
scene.
it's so fun. So fun. Oh, what a shame that got cut. Oh.
Got cut or
was it even filmed? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what a bummer. I have to go back and look if there was any like wrappers or anything around where, had they cut it and it was still there. I don't know. I didn't look at that hard, but I should.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Like, see if we see any visual signs that the scene maybe did really happen.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, what a cool scene.
Part of what we enjoy sharing with each other and with listeners are these things, the what if.
What would it have been like? Yeah. Well, so Rob says, trust me, guys, if I could tell you, I would. And so, he's right in the same place Laura is with Millie, where he's dying to tell somebody, but swore that he couldn't. So we're getting the flip side to Laura's situation. So Buddy and Sally immediately start peppering him with questions, trying to guess what he's hiding. Is it something to do with the show? That kind of stuff.
And Sally sort of says, Rob, if you didn't want us to know, you'd have just taken the morning off and never told us. Said you had a dental appointment or a dancing lesson. And Buddy says, or a taxidermy lesson. Sally looks at him and says, a taxidermy lesson? And Buddy says,
you never know when you might want to stuff an owl.
She says, sure you do.
Sure you do. Anytime when I'm with my partner, anytime I see a stuffed animal, like I'm at antique stores, if I see a stuffed thing, I always say, sure you do. It's one of my favorite Sally lines.
If you're a Dick Van Dyke Show fan, there are definitely those lines that have meaning to other fans. And
yes,
if you recite them, it immediately recalls a memory from an episode, for sure.
100%. It's wonderful.
Rob explains to Buddy and Sally that he and Laura promised each other that they wouldn't tell what was going on, but Buddy just can't let it go.
Still trying to solve the mystery. Sally says, okay, you know what, Buddy? The subject is closed. We won't talk about it anymore, Rob. And Buddy goes, yeah, okay. So if it's not about the show, it's something personal. He's still going at it. But then Buddy comes up with something about the Cockney chimney sweep.
They finally shame him into trying to do some work on the show.
And I was wondering whether the Cockney chimney sweep was a reference to Dick's character, Bert, in Mary Poppins. So I kind of did some figuring of the dates.
Yeah, how's the timing? Because this was August of 63.
Yes, it does work out because the production timeline for Mary Poppins started in May of 63.
There you go.
And they ended in September. So right when this was happening, there's a substantial overlap, where he's filming this and probably that at the same time. So I thought, well, that's cool that they referenced that in there. Very fun.
What's the line? Do you have the line written there?
Alan will come in dressed as a Cockney chimney sweep, but I don't remember the rest of the line. I could look it up.
I think he's too fat that he can't get down the chimney or something like that. I think that is the segue because Mel enters and Buddy looks at Mel and says, speaking of fat chimneys, right? Mel says to Rob, can I disturb you for a minute? And Buddy says, 1 minute of you disturbs me for a month. And herein lies some of
Yes.
the best
Yes.
Mel moments, because I think it is the first appearance
believe
of
so.
the clicker, Mel's therapy tool to release his tension or his
Inner hostilities, he calls it, right? And it's great how they introduce it because you don't see the clicker, you just hear it, and everyone's looking around the room like, "What is this noise? What's happening?" And then he says, "It's been recommended to ease my inner tensions brought on by hostile insects," is what he calls Buddy. And then Buddy replies, "Ever try rubbing your hind legs together?"
this
Just great.
banter between the two of them is rapid fire and some of the best
Yeah.
consecutive lines, I think, in all the episodes.
And Richard Deacon's timing on the clicker is just, it's perfect.
And the looks, the dry stares that he has toward them. Eventually, Mel reminds Rob about the staff meeting that they're going to have the next day. And Rob says, "Well, Mel, I can't make it. I didn't plan to come in tomorrow morning." And Mel says, "Oh, the show is already done or already written. It's completed." Rob says, "Well, no, we're going to plan to work late tonight if we had to." Rob says to Mel,
Mm-hmm.
"I can't tell you why." And again, in the original script, Buddy sort of has his opinion and says, "Mel, I'll tell you why he can't tell you. Because he has a secret appointment with his wife and he promised not to
Hmm.
tell anybody what it is. And if he won't tell his trustworthy friends, how do you expect him to tell a loudmouth, stool pigeon, rat fink of a bald
Whoa, you
producer?"
really let him have it.
So despite the insults that we've had, there were
That's
even more
great.
that we didn't get
That's
didn't
wonderful.
get to hear. But he continues to insult Mel,
Ask him if he's going back under his rock when he's leaving.
and Mel continues to click. And as he's leaving, Mel says to Rob, "Rob, I'm leaving Alan to you, and I'm leaving that," looking at Buddy, "to the Smithsonian."
But he says, "I don't care what you leave, just leave." And then you hear the clicking continuing down the hallway, getting faster and faster.
So much so that Sally says, "Did he discover uranium or something? Because it sounds like a Geiger counter."
And if you look back at that scene, I always laugh because when Rob and Mel are talking and Buddy's kind of insulting Mel, Sally in the background sometimes is laughing so hard she's turning her back to the camera almost. Just it's such a great
Yes.
bit, just like she can't get over this clicking.
So I think it was Rosemary in the character of Sally, but I think in some ways it was
Definitely.
just Rosemary also finding a
Definitely.
lot of humor there.
So then finally Sally says, "Well, you know what? If you're not going to tell us the truth, just tell us anything. Lie to us." Rob starts to talk and we're expecting him. Oh, he's going to confess the way he starts talking. Well, promise not to say anything, but I'll tell you the truth. But then he says, "We're going up to the Bronx Zoo," which, by the way, this sounds like a story Buddy would come up with, like the water polo or something. Where there's a boa constrictor wrapped around a telephone pole, and some of the more prominent citizens have been invited to watch, to unwind it or something.
So interestingly, in the script, Rob's line was, "They have a 40-foot boa constrictor wrapped around a lamp post." So somehow our
Funny.
lamppost transformed into a telephone pole.
Telephone pole is funnier. I agree. So they're left confused, Buddy and Sally. The scene ends. We are back now in the Petrie living room for the next scene. It's the next morning, presumably when they're going to go get married. And it's kind of chaotic. Laura's already dressed in her outfit. She's got Richie's lunchbox. Rob appears out of the bedroom. He's in his boxer shorts with the long socks, which I find hilarious. It's such a great visual. He's so skinny too. It just makes it even funnier.
Yeah, the socks come up almost to his knees.
Right. Yeah, really too. And so Rob's asking, "Where's my suit at?" And Laura's trying to find the suit and getting it out of the closet, and they're sort of communicating while this is all happening. Like, "Well, is Richie still here? Why isn't he at school?" He tells her, "You've been proud of me. I stood firm and I refused to go to that staff meeting today." And Laura's like, "Oh, well, that's good. I'm glad you did that." Richie comes in full energy, runs into the room. Laura gives him his lunchbox, and she's telling him, "Now you got to go straight to Millie's after school because we get that they're gonna be spending the day together, getting married." And she says, "Well, they have an errand to
Yeah,
do."
she doesn't reveal to him what they're doing, right?
No. Something comes up with like, "Well, why is he still here? Isn't he going to school?" And Richie says, "Well, the teachers had a meeting this morning. We're supposed to go late." And Rob's kind of irked at this. Like, of all the mornings, why do they have to go late this morning? Like, why is he around when this is happening, kind of thing? And I think it's funny because he could have just gotten dressed in the bedroom instead of the living room, and then probably wouldn't have even run into, what I mean? But it just makes it funnier that he's out there, like, struggling with his clothes.
So an observation that I had, as I said, they get the suit out of the front closet and Rob starts to get dressed. What I think is very interesting is we mentioned his socks up to his knees, but he's already wearing his shoes. So when he puts on the pants to his suit, it's His shoes are going through his pant leg.
Which, of course, is making it harder.
They're already on his feet. Yeah. So
it's hilarious. It's just a great visual with the shoes and the socks and the boxer shorts. That's hysterical. And he always does fun physical comedy with his clothes.
Yep.
I'm reminded of like the Big Mac's Cavada when he's trying to put on the tie to take a shower, or the time he puts on Buddy's pants, to run to meet Laura when she's having the baby. Like he does great things with clothing, so it's fun to see.
Well, despite Richie's delay in leaving for school, Laura remarks, "Well, at least they still have all day." And Rob sort of looks at her and says, "Well, remember, honey, I have to get back to work this afternoon." And you can see Laura is clearly not happy with that answer. And she says, "You mean after the ceremony that you're just going to leave me?"
And he says, "Well, no, I'm just going to drop you back here and just continue on, go to work."
And he says, "It's not as if we're really getting married." And Laura says, "Well, I sort of feel like a bride." She said, "I'm a little nervous." And Rob says, "Well, I feel something too." And she's like, "Well, what's that?" And he said, "Well, I feel a little silly."
And so she's hurt. She's hurt that he's not going to spend the day with her and that he feels silly. Just this important day for her. And she's kind of upset. And she kind of ask him again, why can't we spend the day together? He says, well, we haven't finished this week's show. Alan's already angry with us, that kind of thing. And then Laura lets maybe slip just a little bit about Millie, not intentionally, but she says, well, I'm sure Buddy and Sally, would have covered for you had they known the occasion. Rob, he immediately reacts and says, well, are you suggesting that I told Buddy and Sally? Mary's reaction here, oh my God, it's just genius. She's looking in the mirror, putting on her hat, and she kind of looks over quick like, Well, no, she kind of has to backpedal then for the next 5 minutes, which is just hilarious.
Yeah, and she's trying in any way that she can to cover up the slip, cover up her guilt, right? And Rob says, you didn't tell anyone that we're getting married again, did you? And Laura sort of continues to cover.
And this bit of hers, this is some gold comedy. The way she's talking, we both agreed it would be, terrible if people found out. And, she's sort of like so nervous at how she's not point blank saying she told anybody, but she's talking around it, and just the cadence she has, the rhythm. Oh, it's so funny. And at the end, she says, so we agreed that we wouldn't tell anybody kind of thing. And I'm sure glad we didn't. And Rob just goes, you told Millie.
To which she says, I didn't tell her being the emphasis.
Yes.
And then she immediately tries to change the subject by saying that they need to go because they're going to be late. The justice of the peace is going to be there and the witnesses, etc.
But Rob keeps kind of pressing. She says, you're calling me a liar because she said she didn't tell Millie and he's implying that she did tell Millie. And she says, you just call me a liar. And so she's already upset. And so she goes, well, first you call me a liar and then you're going to drive me to Connecticut, marry me and drop me like a hot potato, which I think is such a funny line. And he says, well, I offered to wait a couple of weeks and take a few days off, but you wanted to do it now. You were still uncomfortable. And she says, yes, I'm, uncomfortable with us being only legally married in certain states. And then she starts with the lawyer and the loophole bit, which I think is where the fight kind of escalates.
She says, as soon as you found out about my marriage, bang, you're right on the phone calling Marvin, the attorney, looking for loopholes, how to figure this out. Rob says, let's not get into a thing. Let's just get this over with. You don't seem like you're exactly in the most appropriate move for a marriage ceremony. And he says, I'm not the one who lied. And she says,
I didn't lie. I didn't tell Millie until she guessed it. Kind of bites her fist like, oh, shoot. Like, why did I say that?
She's giving away the secret. Rob says, wait.
So Millie knows. And then Laura says, you called me a liar. So she's kind of playing the fence here. It's like she did tell Millie, but she's not can quite tell her, so not technically a liar.
She says, I didn't tell Millie until she guessed it. And Rob says, wait, I was referencing the marriage certificate. You were the one who lied about your age on the marriage certificate.
And she says, well, then you are calling me a liar. He goes, that's what you are.
Next exchange, I really like it.
Yeah,
she sort of looks at him and says, Rob, would you like to call off our marriage? And he says, which one?
She says, take your pick. And we get that, like, neither of them actually wants a divorce here. They're just trapped in this argument. Neither of them wants to back down and be vulnerable. They're just kind of like, they don't know how to end it, And so Rob kind of ends it with like, well, the only reason I'm going to, go on with this is like, well, I'm not a welcher. I said I would marry you and I'm going to marry you kind of thing. Like, that's his reason for going.
And Laura says, well, neither am I. So let's go get married. And they storm out the door to head toward the Greenwich, Connecticut.
And there was one line before this that I did like. Rob asked, why did she have to tell Millie? And she says, well, she guessed it. He says, oh, and without the tiniest bit of a hint from you, I guess, right? Which I think is funny. Like, he knows exactly how she works.
She tries to put it back on him. Oh, you didn't give Buddy or Sally the smallest little hint, right? And then he says, well, what I told him is about the boa constrictor.
He did good not telling anybody. So next scene, we open up, and now you'll have to tell me, David. I'm not married, and I don't know that I know anyone that's been to the Justice of the Peace. To my knowledge, like Justice of the Peace is like in a courthouse, and you go. Are there these like home Justice of the Peace situations? Like it looks like they're when we open up on this sort of officiant room, it looks like it's almost a home.
As a official Justice of the Peace, they could go anywhere and perform the marriage ceremony.
Oh, okay, interesting. And it sounded like from the episode, they're like, there's a lot of these places, up in this area he's going to. We'll just go on and find somebody else that will, kind of thing. And I'm wondering, like, was that a common thing? And
I think in a small village or town, you'd have a Justice of the Peace, and they were empowered to be able to perform a marriage ceremonies.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of quaint. So I assume this is a swing set of the show, this Justice of the Peace.
Yes.
Because we've already seen the office and the home. I was wondering, looking at the set with those double doors and all that, like, this wasn't anything reset then. It wasn't something redressed. It probably is its own set, I imagine. I didn't recognize anything in it.
Correct. I didn't recognize it as one of our other standard sets. As our scene opens, as you know, we are sort of in this home, and we see a Justice of the Peace and an elderly couple and a young couple. And it appears as though a previous marriage ceremony is just finishing up. And this is where we do get our glimpse of Frank Adamo and his cameo as the groom to the bride and groom.
Couldn't find anything else about the bride, though, that he's with. I looked and looked. She's uncredited. I couldn't recognize her face. I don't know if you recognized her or not.
I believe I recognize her from the standpoint of having seen her as a background actor in other episodes. But yes, I do not know who she is.
Yeah, if anyone knows who that is, let us know in the comments. I would be very curious.
So this is where we actually meet the judge and the two elderly witnesses. So we'll talk a little bit more here about them before we go on. So Russell Collins, who played the judge, enjoyed a long career on Broadway, although by the late 1940s, he began to perform increasingly in Hollywood films and on television. He appeared in teledramas as well as on Westerns, sitcoms, and on an array of other weekly series. And he was in high demand as a character actor and worked on television to shortly before his death, which was in November of 1965. So not too long after this Dick Van Dyke Show appearance.
Yeah. And apparently I was reading that he started with a pioneering acting group called Group Theater, like in the 1930s. And they were the kind of the ones that revolutionized like that realistic acting style, kind of like the Marlon Brando, like the Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler kind of stuff. And he was kind of part of that movement, which was really interesting. Kind of shaped kind of American acting, if you will, part of that group.
And he had credits on the Western Wagon Train and on the Rifleman and on the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. And Alfred Hitchcock Presents, apparently he was on there a few times.
Yeah. The older man, Donald, played by Burt Mustin. Now, interestingly, Burt Mustin did not begin his acting career until he was 67 years old.
Which is amazing.
But then he worked extensively in film and television from the 1950s to the 70s, ultimately having over 150 appearances.
In every show you would know.
Beverly Hillbillies, Get
Twilight.
Smart, yes, Leave It to Beaver, Bewitched, Dragnet, Gunsmoke, so many more. His last TV appearance was actually on the sitcom Phyllis when he was 92 years of age.
93, yeah, can you imagine? Well, it's interesting. He essentially had two careers. He had like 45 years where I think he was like a salesman or something, where he's that. And then he has a whole nother like a quarter of a century where he's just like this recognizable character actor. It's very cool. It's a very cool life. I read that casting directors often joked that he was like too spry to play like frail old men because he was just like so full of energy, which I think is so really fun.
Dodo was portrayed by Madge Blake.
Dodo.
Madge was Larry Mondello's mother in Leave It to Beaver, but probably most recognized and remembered for her role as Aunt Harriet on 96 episodes of Batman.
Yes, yeah.
She also had a role in An American in Paris with Gene Kelly. Ironically, she also started her acting career later in life at age 50.
Well, and I thought it was interesting because the characters, Dodo and is it Donald? Yes. The joke is that they've only been married 5 years, that they met late in life. And I thought, well, it kind of mimics, what their acting careers were a little bit. But I read something weird about Madge. Let me know if you read this, that during World War II, her and her husband worked on the Manhattan Project. They helped test equipment for the atomic bomb. Is that not interesting?
I had no idea.
Yeah. And apparently I looked at the US government, they kind of like, they've recognized her contributions to this. Like, it's very strange. It was in all the things that I read about her. It would mention this Manhattan Project, which I thought was really interesting.
So Madge, as Dodo, says how much he really enjoys watching these ceremonies and being witnesses to them. And Donald says, it's real life happening and we are part of it. And Dodo says, we are there. Now, do you know that reference?
We
Do you
are
know the
there.
reference to that or not?
I
Oh,
don't, but I could tell it was one, the way everyone laughed.
We Are There is actually a tongue in cheek reference to a CBS program of that era or around that era. It was originally a radio program that eventually transitioned to television, hosted by Walter Cronkite.
Hmm.
And the premise of the show was that it would feature various key events in American and world history, but they
Hmm.
would be portrayed in dramatic recreations.
Oh, cool.
So near the end, Cronkite would always say, all things are like as they were then, except you were there or you are there.
Oh, I love that.
And again, this is sort of the inside joke because he says it's happening and it's real life and we're part of it. And she says, we are there. So again, if you don't know that,
Well, in a CBS
yes,
reference,
yes. So
for them.
if you don't know the history of it, it's sort of lost. But
That's cool.
that was again a sort of a cultural reference to the day that
Mhm.
sort of dates the episode.
Yeah.
If you listen to the audience reaction, you can tell that they know what she's talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could tell it was something the way they were laughing. Yeah. Well, then the officiant says, "Well, what number was that couple? That we just officiated?" And she says that they've officiated 32,000. He's officiated 32,491 weddings. And so we get to like this guy's been doing this a long time. And then Dodo and Donald, they say, "Well, what number was that for us?" And they said, "Well, this is our 814th wedding." And I think he calls her Sweetie Pie, which I think is adorable.
Let's talk about that number, 32,491. I'm
Mhm.
going to fast forward a little bit to when Rob and Laura actually get married. And he says, okay, let's do 32,493. So we're
Mm.
missing one in there.
Interesting.
And I went back and I looked at the
Did you
earlier
look at the
version of the
script?
script. And the judge says initially, oh, what reference? Oh, 32,491. Oh, no. 32,492.
Like referring to Frank that just had came in.
Or, missing whatever the number was.
Mm-hmm.
He says one at first and then corrects himself and says 92. But we missed that. So actually, when I was watching the episode and he said 93 at the end, I sort of said, wait a minute, did we miss one? And in fact,
Yeah.
we did, right?
Oh, that's cool. That's neat.
Either they cut out the line or something went awry with it.
Something, yeah. That's really interesting. Well, the wife jokes, if they had retired her husband from the railroad, a year earlier, they would have witnessed, way past 1,000. And this is just to set up how cute they are together, I think, just them really enjoying this witnessing activity, that they're so sincere, and it's very cute. And it's just kind of amusing to think that, like, is this how they spend their entire day now? Like, now that they're retired, they just sit in here? Like, that's so funny.
The judge asked Donald to ask Rob and Laura in, and Donald opens the door and says, Mr. Petrie, you can come in. And Rob sort of like looks around the door and you can see that he's sort of agitated or upset. And he says, well, actually it's Petrie. But he said, my wife's having a little,
I mean,
a little problem here, but we'll be okay. We'll be in a minute, right? And the door with that,
a lot of stammering.
The door closes,
which he's great with that kind of thing. Give him a bit with a door and like some stammering. Like, oh, he's perfect at it.
You can hear Rob and Laura squabbling and arguing out in the hallway.
And this is just amazing, by the way. Their chemistry, even when they're fighting, it's amazing. Like, you don't for a minute think that they're not married. It's unbelievable. They're fighting off screen, and that they're acting off screen. No one can see that, but you can tell they're fully acting out what's happening, just the way that their voices are carried and everything. And it's just going, let's just go get married. I don't want to, and if I never marry you again, it'll be the last thing. And they're, just take me home. I don't want to go home. And they're fighting. It's so effective. Eventually, the door opens and, Rob's got her by the arm,
kind of pulling her in. And I like how they sort of like try to go through the single door together. And
kind of Three
they
Stooges.
almost bump and are pushed back because they can't fit through the door frame.
The part's great.
In the upcoming segment, I also think it's the genius of Dick as Rob, how he continues to stumble over his words when he goes to mention Laura, his wife, or my wife to be my fiance, there's so many references, and each time when he goes to do it, he sort of catches himself and reels himself back in quickly to try not to reveal the secret.
I think Rosemary one time, it might have actually been an interview you had with her on the phone where she says something about, she called it something that Rob does.
I think thumping or something like that.
Thumping, yeah, something where he just kind of flubs a line, but he does it so naturally. Yes. It sounds absolutely real. And she was totally right. He's so good at that. The officiant introduces himself and he says, I'm Judge Crater. And I didn't know who Judge Crater was because everyone laughs. And of course, Rob's like, Judge Crater, So I had to look him up. I looked this up a while ago when I saw it when I was younger because I didn't know who it was. But apparently, if you're not familiar, there was a Judge Joseph Force Crater, and he's one of the most famous missing persons in American history, apparently. And it says in 1930, he was dining in Manhattan. He got into a taxi, vanished without a trace, and they had a huge investigation, but no one ever found him or determined what happened to him, and he was legally declared dead, like 9 years later. And apparently at that time, this would have been kind of like a Jimmy Hoffa where people would reference Judge Crater, I guess, and you would know what this was. But I had no knowledge of this.
Yeah, so I did a little investigation too. And what I found was the reports were that while he vanished, he had previously already emptied his office files, liquidated his assets, taken thousands of dollars in cash, and sent his court clerk away.
A little suspicious.
Interestingly, no one reported him missing for 27 days, which meant that trying to look for foul play or something else, they were way behind the eight ball because nearly a month had passed before he was actually reported missing.
Interesting.
Some speculated that he went into hiding voluntarily under an alias due to financial scandals or blackmail fears or something, right? And then, and I think this is what you were sort of saying, there was actually a phrase back then to pull a crater, which was a popular slang meaning to disappear without a trace.
Just vanish. Yeah. I think that's so interesting. That one did not hold up over time. I've never heard anyone say that. I don't know if that didn't make it through time. But so the judge explains that no, his name actually isn't Crater. It's actually spelled Krata, and he should pronounce it Krata, but he doesn't because he likes to see people's expressions on their face when he tells them he's Judge Crater, which is great.
Dick and Mary as Rob and Laura really, when he says it, they sort of do jolt like, oh my gosh, who is this, right?
It just makes him a little eccentric. It's kind of fun.
So the judge introduces Donald and Dodo, and Dodo asks Laura perhaps if she could guess how many years that they've been married, sort of with the inference that it will be a number of years since they're as old as they are. And Laura says, well, I'm really not that good at guessing. She sort of gets pressed by Dodo. So
by the way, this is a common gag, isn't it? Two people trying to guess my age, guess, like with the dog. Remember the dog in the vet? How old do you think she looks? It's just a common. And then there was like, I don't want to guess, like.
Ultimately, Laura guesses 30, and they both sort of chuckle and laugh, and they reveal that they've only been married 5 years.
Our wooden
Donald
anniversary.
says, yes, our wooden anniversary. The judge says, well, tell them how you met. And they reveal that they met each other because each of their spouses died and were buried next to each other in adjoining plots.
And the way they tell it, the way she's telling it, it's like it's a romantic, love story, but it's all like takes place in a cemetery.
And Rob and Laura are sort of looking at each other like, what have we gotten ourselves into? And then she says, the next time we ran into each other was at the pharmacy when we were getting our prescriptions for cholesterol.
Again, romantic. Yeah. We're both suffering from cholesterol.
I did tell you, I did a little research there. And back in the 1960s, cholesterol really wasn't much of a thing. In fact, I read somewhere where they initially had a drug to help deal with cholesterol, and it had such bad side effects that they had to pull it off the market.
Oh, interesting. Hope they weren't taking those.
So I'm not sure where they came up with they were suffering from cholesterol. But again, an interesting thing to consider, I guess.
Just the most unromantic story you can imagine. Cemetery followed by getting your cholesterol medication. So 3 months later, they said 3 months later, Judge Krata married them. And I would like to say that we've been in this scene for like 5-10 minutes. I mean, not in the actual time of the episode, but we've been in this scene a long time and nothing has happened except that we've heard this elderly couple tell this love story. And the fishing has told his story about like just getting all this eccentricities, out. It's just so fun. It's just very unusual, very charming.
So the judge finally says, well, are you folks, ready to be married? And with that, Laura sort of offers a little bit of a sarcastic remark.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, because we drove all the way up here. And Rob, you are losing a morning's work.
And he says, morning's work. And she says, well, yeah, he's a very important man, very, very busy at the office.
I'm grateful that he's giving me this much time, right?
She's great at the sarcasm.
And the judge sort of looks, can sense this tenseness between the couple.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, she refers to him as my husband there, which I thought was a little slip.
Oh, did she? I have to go back and I missed that. Krata says after some of this little back and forth, maybe you'd like to think about getting married. And Rob says, oh, no, we've got to go through with it. She's promised too many of our neighbors that we're getting married.
And then Laura says, I didn't tell anyone. He says, don't hand me that.
through his gritted teeth. Don't.
Gritted teeth.
At this point, the judge says he'd like to offer a little bit of advice, and Dodo says, "Listen to the judge. He's a very wise man." And then I think it's Donald's best line.
Yeah,
He
definitely.
straightened me out.
Which is a line you hear in the series otherwise too. Do you remember in Pink Pills for Purple Patients when Rob's dad keeps saying that, we're straightening out. There's always this sort of like straightening out comments, which are hilarious. Oh, Donald delivers that so well.
Mustard's delivery is just spot
so
on, right? So the judge goes on to explain that he's never refused to marry anyone until today. And with that comment, Rob and Laura sort of are jolted to reality, I think, right? And that sort of starts softening the mood between them.
Yeah, well, he says, he calls them mismated souls, mismatched souls kind of thing, and they're like, "What?" And he says, "My conscience won't allow me to marry you. You're too mismatched." And they're like,
"You have a life of misery."
Well, and I love Dodo's response too. That's the way he is. And then Donald, I think, repeats again. He straightened me out. It's the second time.
Rob and Laura then sort of begin to partner now instead of being adversaries.
In the moment right before this, when they're getting all these eccentric people talking in the love story, they almost try to share a look at some point, Rob and Laura. Like in reality, if they weren't fighting, they would have looked at each other like, "What the heck is going on here?" But they look to each other, but they can't meet their eyes because they're mad at each other. And so here you finally get them. Okay, now they can look at each other. They can share each other. They're softening.
They basically try to convince the judge how much they really do love each other. Rob says, "Look, if I have to drive all the way up to Canada to find another judge to marry us, I will. But nobody's going to tell me that she and I aren't meant for each other."
Yeah, and he says I couldn't live without her, and she said, "Yeah, they die without each other."
Laura remarks to Rob, "Well, Rob, if we have to go further upstate, you'll miss a whole day's work." And Rob says, "Who cares?"
And right there, I think we get Laura feels seen.
Yes.
She doesn't actually care he's going to work. She just wants to feel like she's special and that he's treating her well. And that moment, she's just like, "Oh, okay, all's well now. He sees me. He is treating me well in that way." Being seen.
So Rob says, "If we had someone to take care of Rich, I'd take the whole weekend." They're like, "Rich? Who's Rich?" And they're like, "Oh, our dog, the dog. He gave me a dog. It's her dog, my dog.
Our
right?
dog. I gave it to him." They do that so good. Amazing
Now,
timing.
those lines were written in the script, and they're actually written side by side to clue the actors in that it is supposed to be like stepping all over each other.
It's a little vaudevillian too, pointing at each other. His dog, my dog. It's got a very vaudeville feel. It's quite a good routine.
They do it very well, as you point out.
Yeah.
Finally, Rob looks at Judge Craddock and says, "Are you going to marry us, Judge, or do we have to look for another one?" He sort of looks at Dodo and Donald, and they sort of give a smile and their approval, and the judge ultimately concedes, right? At that point, Dodo goes over to the Victrola, the record player.
Her run across the room, every time she starts running, I just lose it. She's so cute.
And puts on the music, and this is where the judge does announce the number of 32,433, sort of mistakenly, right?
And by the way, it's like an old Victrola, it's like some old thing, it's so outdated looking.
And the sort of the music, right?
I looked up that song. Did you look that up?
I know that song. What did you find?
I found that it was, well, I heard it and I'm like, that's distinctly 20s. Like it has to be just the tone and everything. And so I tried to identify it using Shazam, see if it would pick it up. But I'm sure it's the version that Orchestra was playing at the episode taping or whatever, or something, maybe Earl put together or something. So I couldn't find it. So then I did some more looking, and I think I found it. It might have been in Vince Waldron's book. Somebody's book had mentioned it, that it was a song called "I Wonder What's Become of Sally." And there's an instrumental version, but there's also an Al Jolson does a really famous version of it, which is interesting, which I didn't know.
I had a little bit easier task in doing my research. In the script, Carl wrote the song is I wonder what's become of Sally. So, but as the music starts to play, right, Rob and Laura again look at each other like, what is
they
this?
Finally can look at each other.
Scratchy and sort of old.
It's
and
wobbly, kind of like flat, sharp, kind of wobbly. And also, what is the song?
As they exchange glances, we go to commercial.
Well, actually, before we cut to the commercial, the judge says, "Dearly beloved." So we get that we're probably not going to see the whole shebang of them getting married. And so when the show returns, they're just saying the final lines of the ceremony. Dodo's crying. She got a little handkerchief out. She's dabbing her eyes. The judge pronounces them, now you're your husband and wife. They kiss, and it's so sweet. And there's so much chemistry there. And then Dodo says, "It's the loveliest wedding I've ever seen," And Donald says, except for ours. Oh, yes. You know?
And Rob at some point says, I'm sorry, we had to practically force you to marry us, Judge. And
Yeah.
the judge says, well, I can tell from the way you two just kissed that you're a real match set.
And I feel like the audience, we can tell too. Like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's really hard to believe there wasn't something there with them. It's unbelievable. Any sitcom I've ever seen, just unbelievable. I wonder too, looking at this episode, did the judge kind of orchestrate this a little bit, saying he didn't want to marry them to kind of bring them back together to see if it would work? Kind of little reverse psychology, maybe. I wonder if he was trying to do that, if that was implied or not.
I think you could read it that way for sure. Rob asks if there's a small lake resort nearby where they might go for sort of a honeymoon, and Donald suggests the honeymoon haven with the great rumba band.
It's just great. I looked it up. There's no such place. I was wondering if that was a real place, but it did say there was a honeymoon haven in Dingman's Ferry, Pennsylvania at this time. And it would have been only like 50 miles as the crow flies from New York City. So it could have been something somebody knew, or Carl knew, or something.
Well, Rob asked Laura if she would like to go, and Laura now has all of her misgivings and anxieties, or whatever you like to call them, have melted away. And she declines, saying that Rob really needs to get back to the office, and she understands. And Rob sort of acknowledges that, and he says, well, you're right. And we did promise to take Rich to the movies.
And they go, okay, see you folks. And they leave. They're like, what? You know? And so then Donald and Dodo and Judge Crater, they all kind of exchange a look like a dog, you know? And Dodo says, I don't understand young people these days. And Donald says, even at this age, I'd still rather go on a honeymoon than take a dog to the movies. Great final joke.
A fine two-part ending, second part ending to this two-part setup.
A rather simple plot,
Yes.
you know, when you think about it, but it does the trick. A lot of great actors in that scene. The chemistry shines. I'm still shocked that they did this little bit of a racy topic of not being married legally. And, you know, I find that interesting. I find that very cool that Carl pushed that envelope a little bit. It's something he would do, it seems like.
Carl used episode storylines to push the envelope in a number of scenarios. This is one, right? We had this scenario of that's my boy and the baby's being confused.
And the show of hands.
And the fact that, you know, Sheldon pushed to have Greg Morris, a young black actor, in That's My Boy. Yeah. For the 1960s, the early 1960s, it's quite remarkable what they were able to
it really is.
Sort of weave into the episodes.
And to weave it in and make it acceptable and make it just part of life, and no shying away from these topics because they might offend, or they might. It was really like, let's push it and let's be real. I appreciate that.
Well, that wraps up our discussion for today of Very Old Shoes, Very Old Rice.
And if you'd like to be notified when our new episodes are released, just feel free to subscribe to our Tripping Over the Ottoman channel on YouTube. You can also find us on all the major streaming platforms.
And do remember, we are a community, so we value your comments, your questions, your contributions to our discussion surrounding the show. So we always like to get email from you. So feel free to leave feedback on the channel, or send us a note at trippingovertheottoman@gmail.com. Ask you for a little bit of fun. Title that subject Box 7030. It's always fun to see that pop into the inbox. So for today, I'm David.
And I'm Abby. And thanks for tripping over the Ottoman with us. We'll see you next time.